Hi, my name is Chris Cardiff, and today I want to introduce you to Reverend Archibald Alexander, a seminal figure in American religion who left behind an enormous intellectual legacy. He wrote literally hundreds of tracts and articles, many books, and played a leading role in more than one religious publishing company. Perhaps his most lasting legacy, however, was as founding president of Princeton Theological Seminary, which would train thousands of ministers. David Paulus, in his article Archibald Alexander and the Use of Books, provides an excellent biographical sketch of Alexander's early years and later contributions. Alexander grew up in a time when books were rare and expensive. Nevertheless, he became a voracious reader and at age 10 started studies under a graduate of Princeton College. He started his ministry as an itinerant Presbyterian missionary, going house to house in central and western Virginia, and he found there was nothing to read in these houses. The only thing he had to read was the Bible he carried with him. And this left a profound impression on him because he thought these brief visits, he could preach to them, but he had nothing left behind for them to read and continue to study on their own. His second calling was as president of Hampton-Sydney College. This is where he got experience as an educator and began his writing career. His third calling was to a pastorate in Philadelphia, and this is where he hit the big time. Now he's moved into the nation's largest city at the time. It's also a major publishing center, lots of libraries. He founded the Philadelphia Bible Society in 1808, and this was the first Bible society that was actually handing out Bibles, publishing Bibles, and distributing them to people who could not afford them. He rose to leadership of the Presbyterian Church of the United States, and he used that influence then to convince the Presbyterians to launch Princeton Theological Seminary. It was not the first seminary in the country, it was actually the second. Congregationalists had started the first, and they didn't want to leave the competition to have the only seminary in the country. And Alexander then became the first professor and the de facto president of Princeton Theological Seminary. It was, at the time it launched, he was teaching out of his home with only 3 students. And he designed a curriculum, a very rigorous curriculum, whose goal was to explain, defend, and experience the Bible. David Wells, in the Princeton Theology, Reformed Theology in America book, described Alexander when he arrived at Princeton in 1812. He'd had a full career already as a revivalist, educator, pastor, and theologian. So, by the 10th anniversary of Princeton Theological Seminary, they had only 3 professors, but they'd had 254 graduates. Of those graduates, 15 were college presidents, and another 25 were full professors. William Selden, in Princeton Theological Seminary, A Narrative History, described it as, his words established the basis for the prestige that Princeton Theological Seminary attained in its first century of existence, and has subsequently maintained throughout its second century. Just a quick word about his personal life. Archibald Alexander had 5 sons. He named each of them after men that he admired. Just to mention one of them, his 4th son was Samuel Davies Alexander, named after a Virginia minister who emphasized literacy for slaves as part of their conversion. 2 of his sons followed in his footsteps as full professors at Princeton Theological Seminary. And just in conclusion here, this is a fascinating man. He left an intellectual legacy that few have been able to match. He wrote hundreds of religious tracts, articles, launched magazines, Bible societies, and a publishing house. He founded the Princeton Theological Seminary, where he led it for 27 years before stepping down. And that theological seminary has trained literally thousands of ministers who preach the word more than 2 centuries later.